Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back into Morons and a Mic. We are Cody and Teddy, and we're going to go over some dynasty trades and week one studs and duds. Great week one. I didn't win, but had some great games.
You
So
won
let's just kick it
some.
off. Let's just kick it off right now and jump into some dynasty trades because I know Teddy is super eager to talk about his Saquon Sega.
So I've got some good ones and I've got some bad ones. So in two different dynasty leagues, your boy traded for Saquon. So last year I traded a late first for him because I figured it would be a contending push for us. That team ended up getting some injuries and getting eliminated in the second round, but that's all right. So this year, the Saquon trades that I made, I've been working on the Saquon deal for a while because I had two really good tight ends. I had Kincaid and Njoku, and the person that had Saquon had no tight ends. Like her starting tight end was Chigo Okonkwo, and that's never a good place to be starting a season.
He
So
did fine in week one.
I was like, hey, we got some, common ground. I could get maybe Saquon, and so she was hesitant to deal Saquon. So what I did instead, I traded for Jalen Warren. I traded Jameson Williams, which looks really stupid now after he had 121 yards on Sunday. I traded, I think a third round pick in Jameson Williams for Jalen Warren, and then I got the bright idea. I was like, hey, if I give her Jalen Warren, that's another solid running back that she can do. So I gave up Njoku, Warren, and a third for Saquon, and that should have been the end of it if I was smart,
Yeah,
but I'm
yeah.
not.
That's a fleece right there.
I mean, it worked for her because let's be honest, Njoku's better than Okonkwo by a long shot, and
One of
but
them outplayed the other one this week. Just saying.
well, I mean, you can't predict injuries. It could have just as easily been Saquon with the ankle injury.
It's
But
true.
anyways, so the next thing I did, like maybe 4 days before the game started, I traded Saquon in a second for Josh Jacobs in a first,
Hmm. And then what happened?
and then Saquon scored 3 touchdowns.
and,
Josh Jacobs
and
didn't
where
score
were
any.
you while he was scoring touchdowns left and right?
Look, man, that's why we're morons in a mic.
Well, after last week we talked about one of the dynasty tips and tricks is know where you are in your competitive cycle. And that kind of struck something in my brain. I'm like, let me relook at this dynasty team that I had Christian McCaffrey in. And I realized I'm like middle of the pack. Like I might sneak into the playoffs, but I'm not a front runner by any means. So I decided to go ahead and pull that trigger to be the first one to rebuild in that league. And I
You are
traded
not.
McCaffrey for 2 firsts and a second. Well, I
Bro,
mean,
have you seen the other teams? Have you seen my brother's team? This is projected for like 98 points. Like it's terrible.
listen,
So
I'm
bad.
just collecting picks at this point.
As you
All right.
should. As you should.
But our dynasty tip this week is don't be afraid to pull that trigger. You win some trades, you lose some trades. Hindsight's always 2020, but don't let that make you afraid to pull the trigger.
Always try and improve your team. Like I have one dynasty that I'm in. When I took it over as an orphan back in June, and the team was terrible. It's a cap dynasty, so it was over the cap. It was terrible. I immediately began the process of getting under the cap, and through all of the machinations, whatever, I ended up trading away basically all my good running backs. I have a giant black hole at running back, but my receivers, they're actually really good. I have CeeDee Lamb, I have Nico Collins, I have Tank Dell, I've got Romo Dunze, I've got Brian Thomas Jr. I've got really good receivers. Um, One of the other things that I did, I paid contracts. Like I traded Cooper Cup for a first, but the only way I was able to get that was to cover his contract. So even though it may not have been super fair, it doesn't matter because that's not where I wasn't needing that money. You
Yeah.
know, but now like somebody offered me Bucky Irving for Ricky Pearsall. Ricky Pearsall on that team is like wide receiver 6, 7. He's not starting over Ayuk. He's not playing over Jawan Jennings. He's not playing over Debo Samuel.
He's not playing right now
He got
at all
shot
because he
in
got
the
shot
chest.
in the chest.
Yeah. But somebody offered me Bucky Irving, who I think is a really sneaky candidate to take a lot of work from Rashad White. So, as somebody with a giant black hole at running back and tons of receivers, that trade made sense for me. So even though it wasn't necessarily fair by keep trade cut and whatever calculator you want to use, I think it worked for me. I'm not saying it didn't work for the other person. The best trades are when both parties win. You
No,
want both
the
parties
best
to
trades are
win.
when you totally fleece somebody. Let's be honest here.
No,
The
because then they
best
won't
trades
trade
are
for
when
you
you
again.
walk away
Nope.
the absolute winner.
Nope. I don't. I feel bad for those trades. I want it to be fair. I want both parties to be happy with their trades.
Listen, this is a dog eat dog world, and we're gonna eat some dogs. All right, let's
We can show
let's
here,
jump.
but I don't want to get. Oh man.
Let's skip that. Skip right over that. Let's jump into the studs for the week.
Wait.
And
I have to cover the label, right?
yes. Mm.
Indeed. Very good water.
Yes, great water.
Yep.
I'm going to do a early victory lap on Jaden Daniels. If you recall in episode 1 when we talked about our crazy hot takes, I said Jaden Daniels, I could see him being a top 5 quarterback this year. And on week 1, he was QB3. So I'm going to go ahead and victory lap that. Now, there were some concerning things with that game. He did have 3 fumbles. Yeah, they recovered all 3 of them, so didn't hurt him that bad. But he needs to get that under control. And Cliff Kingsbury needs to get his head out of his tuchus, because Scary Terry lined up in the same exact spot 87% of his snaps.
Yeah.
You move around your best wide receivers.
And
Scary Terry is your best wide receiver.
How much did he use pre-snap motion? He was 27th in the league in pre-snap motion. So the best offensive coordinators are moving their best guys around using pre-snap motion. Cliff Kingsbury's like, I learned nothing in Thailand. Fuck y'all. I'm doing what I do.
Yeah, and I don't know if he was doing that to try to make it less confusing for Jaden Daniels, but this is the NFL, and that's just not going to work.
That's just how Cliff Kingsbury is, man. It's not great.
Which is sad, because he had some great offenses at Texas Tech. But then again, that's college football, and this is the NFL. Things work a little differently here.
And it helps when you have Patrick Mahomes, too, at a college level.
That's true.
Literally Patrick Mahomes.
Hey, what do you think about Josh Allen?
I love Josh Allen. So that's the thing. Everybody was worried about the new offensive coordinator second half last year. You know, the Bills went from being an extremely pass-heavy team. They were, I think, 3rd or 4th in pass rate over expected. And then when the new offensive coordinator took over, they went down to like 25th. They were running the hell out of the ball, which is great for James Cook, but people thought it'd be bad for Josh Allen. Well, you forget Josh Allen is a madman in the red zone, and that man he is going to score.
He will not be denied.
He will not be denied. So that dude doubled his rushing attempts under the new offensive coordinator. So, whatever he's losing in passing volume, he's more than making up for in rushing.
Yeah, that first half was miserable football to watch for the Bills fans.
So I would like to point out, before we go further, the passing around the league was very low, like the lowest in like a decade in yards, touchdowns.
It's been trending down the last few years.
Well, week 1 especially has been lower because they're sitting starters in the preseason now. So that, and as defenses have evolved to combat the pass that has risen over the last few years, defenses have gotten lighter and lighter and lighter. Well, now the pendulum might just swing the other way and make it more profitable to run the ball. So, anyways, before we get too far into the weeds there, let's move on a little bit. Let's move on.
All right, let's talk about a couple more studs on the week. Derek Carr, are we having a resurgence year for Derek Carr?
No.
Okay, because he was the number 3 quarterback on the week per.
I know, but he
PFF.
played the Panthers. I think this is more in relation to Panthers, and I won't say too much on the Panthers because we're going to get to them later, I believe, in our duds, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't want to say
they're in our panic section for sure.
Yeah.
Let me tell you who he was behind for.
Sam Darnold was first.
Sam Darnold was number 1, the number 1 quarterback. It's amazing what throwing to Jay Jettis can do for you.
Well,
Like we said, Saquon Barkley had a fantastic game. He's on pace for 51 touchdowns. I don't think that's sustainable. Do you?
I mean, not 51 touchdowns, but the usage that he had was really, really good. I mean, he had 24 out of the 25 carries. He was running routes. I mean, he only got the 3 targets, I think, but
Mm-hmm.
one of them was 27 yards in the air. I mean, that's something that running backs don't normally see. That's an insanely valuable target. And obviously it was in the end zone to make it even more valuable.
Yeah.
So the fact that they're giving him basically 100% of the carries, they're letting him carry it inside the 10. It's not all just tush push for Jalen Hurts anymore. They're
They
throwing
don't
him
have Kelsey
downfield.
there
I
anymore.
mean,
They can't tush push without Kelsey.
well, I mean, they'll figure it out. But the point is, like, even though Saquon's not going to get 33 points a game because that is unsustainable,
Mm-hmm.
he's going to be very, very good. Like he's probably paying off as long as he stays healthy. He's probably paying off where you drafted him, if not exceeding it.
All right, let's talk about a couple a couple other running backs. Sorry,
Let's
let me
do it.
stumble over my words while I drink here. Water. This is water.
Mhm. Yeah, that's why we're slurring it. It's water.
Yeah, exactly. J.K. Dobbins and Jordan Mason both had fantastic weeks. Which one are you buying more into?
JK, I feel like the
Just
pathway to
kidding.
more work is easier because let's be honest. Once CMC comes back, and it is a little scary that they're adding the Achilles to it, but once CMC comes back,
Mm,
it's his backfield. Even if they
right.
want to keep him fresh, right? It's probably best case scenario for Jordan Mason is probably like 60-40 CMC Jordan Mason. It's best case scenario. J.K.
Might
Dobbins,
be.
on the other hand, if he stays healthy, he's in a run heavy offense with an elite quarterback. I mean, I know teams are going to want to load the box, but Herbert is good enough to make them pay for that.
Yeah,
You
they
have
actually had a pretty good split. They had a 50-50 pass and rush split versus the
yes.
Raiders. And obviously it's going to be game dependent, but I was expecting to see him more running from a Harbaugh Greg Roman offense.
So, as somebody that watched that game, I can tell you that the offensive line really struggled in the first half, and it really prevented them from getting into any kind of rhythm.
Didn't your left tackle have the number one, or no,
The
top five PFF grade on the
Yeah,
week?
Rashawn Slater, the left tackle for the Chargers, is awesome. Like all pro level left tackle is fantastic. The right tackle, he had 0 pressures allowed to Max Crosby in one-on-one matchups, which is the first time that's happened to Crosby since like
That's the
mid
one I was thinking
2022,
of.
which is insane. But anyways, the
Nice little
tackles
fight
weren't
too.
the tackles weren't the issue for the Chargers. It was the interior line. They couldn't pick up stunts. And it was free rushers all day long. It's not great. They don't have the weapons to make them pay yet, really on the outside. So, but
They
J.K.
should hire
Dobbins,
you in that front office. I'm just saying.
I would take that. I would take that job. But
Hey, silence your
J.K.
notifications.
Dobbins has an easier pathway to work. We know the team wants to run. They said they're going to ride the hot hand, and I do believe them. But if J.K. Dobbins is the guy he was coming out of Ohio State, which he looked pretty close Sunday, if he's that guy and Gus Edwards is the guy that we saw on Sunday, how much work is Dobbins going to get? It's probably 70-30, 80-20. Like, it's going to be
Yeah,
more Dobbins than it is Edwards.
right. And I mean, behind the Gus bust, I don't think anybody even touched the ball. So,
Hey, I know what's next, so let's move on. Let's move on. I want to talk about the receivers. I want to talk
all
about
right,
I want
talk
to
to
talk
me
about
about the
Houston.
receivers.
So first of all, for those that well, I mean all of you don't know, in two of our leagues, I have Nico Collins and Tank Dell because I'm a believer in the Texans, and I'm actually trying to trade for Stephon Diggs from this guy just as a bit because in that league I also have Joe Mixon, so it's like I'll have basically the entire Texans offense, and I feel great about that. Anyways, so the takeaways from this is that Nico Collins is that dude. First of all, Nico Collins is effing awesome. He's never coming off the field. That guy is the X receiver. He's the alpha in that room. If I could pick one guy, I want Nico. Give me Nico all day long. Steph Diggs is going to get his targets. I know everybody's going to be concerned about the air yards. He only had like 33 air yards on his 7 targets or 6 targets or whatever it was. Well, I mean, how many of those were in the red zone? Obviously, you're not going to get that much air yards when it's 5 yards downfield. They had him running deeper routes. Stroud just didn't, for whatever reason, target him on those. So I'm not concerned about Diggs. Diggs will eat too. Diggs is still really good.
Right.
Dell is another one that people are freaking out about because they're like, oh, he had a 66% snap share or whatever, 70% snap share. That is skewed heavily by the fact that he came off the field during running plays. On Stroud's dropbacks, Tank Dell ran a route on 34 out of 39 dropbacks for him. Tank Dell is still awesome. Tank Dell got targets. He got air yards. He just didn't convert this time. There will be spike weeks, and he is one for all you dynasty managers, redraft managers, whatever you are. Go trade for Tank Dell. Buy low. If somebody wants to let him go get him.
All right. All right, and we're just going to mention Jaden Reed had a great game, and we'll get more on Jaden Reed later. But
You
other
had to
than
mention Reed because I traded him too, huh?
yeah, 5 touches for 100 and almost 70 yards and 2 touchdowns is pretty good.
So Reed, the concern that I had with Reed last year was that he played 2 snaps all year in 12 personnel sets on two wide receiver sets. He played 2 snaps all year. He still isn't on the field in 2 wide receiver sets. But you know what the Packers did is they ran 3 receiver sets way more often, and they drew up touches for him. Kind of like he's not Debo Samuel because he's a lot smaller and shiftier than Debo is. Debo is huge. He's not Debo, but they treated him like they're Debo. They did end arounds and all this stuff, get the ball in his hands, make him make stuff happen. But he's also a very good route runner. Debo Samuel, he struggles against man coverage. If you look at his man coverage separation scores, it's not good. Jaden Reed has done very well against any type of coverage. I think that they just don't play him in 11 or in 2 receiver sets because he's not very big. They want size out there. So they go with Dubs and Christian Watson. But yeah, Jaden Reed's awesome. I feel I'm an idiot. All right, I'm a moron. I'm the king of the.
Well, we'll talk more on Jaden Reed here in a little bit. Let's get into our duds.
I would prefer you didn't. Let's keep going though.
Let's get into our duds for the week. Starting off with a quarterback, Joe Burrow. What happened? Oh no, Joe Burrow. What happened?
This is really interesting, right? So Joe Burrow, he's made it very well known in his time in Cincinnati that he doesn't like turning his back to the defense to do play action. He wants to be in shotgun. He wants to be spread out. He's basically the closest thing we have to, old Peyton Manning, right? Like,
yeah,
he doesn't want to move. He wants to just pick matchups. He wants to spread out. He wants to get the ball out of his hands fast. And that's great when you've got the receivers to make it work. But the problem is that offense tends to get pretty static, right? Because receivers you're not really using motion. You're not really using play action very much. Defenses can kind of tell what's coming. Well, when you have T. Higgins and Jamar Chase and all that, it tends to work out more often. But when you're missing one or the other, well, defenses can really just focus on one guy. So what happened this time? The Patriots played a great game. Christian Gonzalez followed Jamar Chase for most of the game. Some encouraging things for Chase were that he was in the slot. But anyways, back to my main point, because this water is making me lose my train of thought every once in a while. In the second half last year when Jake Browning was hurt, or when Joe Burrow was hurt and Jake Browning was starting, the offense changed for the Bengals. They did a lot of under center. They did a lot of play action. They still threw the ball a lot, which is unusual for a team with its backup quarterback starting. But they did it was an offense designed like a modern NFL offense, like very well designed offense.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really interesting to see, that now they had proof of concept. They wanted to see if Burrow would run that offense because, hey, Burrow was better than Jake Browning. If Jake Browning was good in that offense last year, yeah, exactly. Real shocker there. But imagine what Joe Burrow could be in that offense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the hope entering the season, at least for me, was that the Bengals would take that offense of the second half last year that they ran with Browning and meld it with the offense that Burrow prefers. That did not happen. They were in the shotgun on 90-something% of their snaps, I think it was. They didn't really use a lot of play action. It was the same standard Joe Burrow, pick a matchup, go with it. And it wasn't great. It wasn't great.
No. You lost to a terrible Patriots team.
Hey, the
Daniel
Patriots
Jones.
defense is low-key pretty good. My
All
boy
right.
Christian Gonzalez, man, go Ducks.
All right. All right. Daniel Jones has thrown more touchdowns to the opposite team than his own team since he signed his deal. This past week, he threw up another dud. He was sixth in the NFL in time in the pocket, but fifth in pressure percentage because he just holds on to the ball. He can't make a decision.
And he runs
And
himself into pressure. He has the pocket presence of like a small child. He just
yeah,
like just goes.
and I say this because I know one of my hot takes was Daniel Jones returning to being a top 10 quarterback. It's not looking great.
It's
Um,
not good.
it's just not looking great.
No.
We're just going to move on after that.
Yeah, we're
All
gonna move
right,
on.
Bears Titans. Let's just skip it. It all sucked.
Yeah.
Unless you played
So
the Bears defense special teams, that game was trash.
And one of my favorite rookie receivers, Rome Odunze, picked up a knee injury in that game. That game was cursed. We're out. I'm done. I'm done with
Yeah.
it.
Amon-Ra St. Brown, the Sun God, only 2 catches. I think that's more of game script than anything. I'm not worried about him.
I don't think it was game script. And I'm not like terribly
Okay,
concerned.
maybe not game script, just
I think it was game plan.
how it played.
Yeah. I'm not too concerned about it yet, but at the same time, you can't deny the fact that Jameson Williams brings something to that offense that Amon Ross simply just does not and cannot bring. I mean, Jameson Williams has true game-breaking speed and ability, right? I mean, we saw it on the 9 route that he cooked Tre'Davious White. I mean, Tre'Davious White tried to tackle him in the middle of the route because he knew he was beat so bad and missed. So, I mean, it basically snatched his soul. But anyways,
Right.
it's one of those things like if that's the Jameson Williams that the Lions have, right? If the Jameson Williams from Sunday night is the Jameson Williams they get all year, there's a real chance that changes the pecking order of that offense. Where that
Okay.
Jameson
I can see
Williams,
that. He's got to prove that he can stay healthy first, though.
he's got to prove that he can stay healthy and consistent. But
Yes.
if you look at the first read target percentage, Jameson Williams was their first read on something like 40% of their pass plays, which was by far the highest on the Lions. So, again, we're talking if, right? Because Jameson Williams, that was his first 100-yard game. He's only had 2 70-yard games. Like, the guy hasn't done much in the NFL yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if that's the Jameson Williams that the Lions have for the whole rest of the year, that's really bad for Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta.
Agreed. Bijan Robinson, tough
So
game there.
well, hold
But
on.
that whole offense just looked garbage.
We'll talk.
A lot of that had to do with Kirk Cousins, but we'll get into that later.
No, let's talk about this real quick. Just real quick because
Okay.
Bijan,
All right. We'll move into talk about
just the
Falcons
Falcons.
passing offense.
We're just gonna talk about it here.
Okay.
Bijan had alpha usage. That man, going into the year, I was one of them. I was a little bit concerned based on the coaching staff's comments and how they've used Tyler Algier and Bijan in the past, that Tyler Algier and Bijan would be not 50-50, but like 60-40, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was not the case, man. Bijan was...
I mean, I've got both. I've got Bijan and Algier, so...
He target hogged, he carry hogged, like he was the bell cow back. So that's got to feel really good because that kind of felt like a floor game. Like they were playing a very good Steelers team. Very, very good Steelers defense.
Yes.
I realize I said team the first
time. Defense.
And I've watched the offense, so they're playing a very good Steelers defense. And Cousins not being fully healthy, it seems, and we'll talk about that later. It did hurt him, but if that's the Bijan floor game, imagine the spike weeks, man, when he gets into the end zone.
Yeah. I'm not worried about Bijan, but if you started in this week, you're not happy with the points you got out of it this week.
No, it's not the ideal, but it's not bad. It's not bad.
No. And you're not worried.
No, definitely not. Definitely don't worry about him.
All right. Let's talk about some fool's gold. These are players that had a great, fantastic week, but you're not buying it. So let's start off with Alec Pierce, wide receiver for the Colts. Go ahead.
All right. So Alec Pierce, the reason that I don't feel like this is all that sustainable is pretty simple. Last year, Alec Pierce lined up as their X receiver on damn near every play, and that dude was running deep routes just like he was this year. Alec Pierce did not have a good separation score. He did not get open on those routes. He didn't get targeted on those routes. He had one of the lowest targets per route run of any wide receiver in the league. I mean, he was basically out there running wind sprints. Like the guy he was just doing his thing. So one of the reasons that I was really high on the Colts wide receiver room this year is because it all fits so well after they drafted A.D. Mitchell in the second round. You have Michael Pittman, who's best used as the intermediate flanker type. You have Josh Downs, who's best used as a slot. You have A.D. Mitchell, who at Texas was a true vertical X receiver and a good one. So that's the difference. A.D. Mitchell in this offense, ideal construction, is probably going to be just like Alec Pierce, but he's just better at it.
Yeah.
So when Josh Downs comes back, I think that Alec Pierce might get pushed out of the lineup. That's why.
And they move him around a little bit.
Yeah.
Too. So, let's see. George Pickens.
Real simple. When Arthur Smith was the OC at Tennessee, A.J. Brown was on the field for about 70% of the snaps, and that's why he was capped at about 1,050 yards a season. You can't put the yards on if you ain't on the field. George Pickens, he had a good game, 70% of the snaps. If they ever get him out to 100 or close to it, he's got league-winning potential, but that's not Arthur Smith's MO. I don't think you're going to get that as long as he's there.
All right, this is one of mine that I added in here. It's going to be about the New Orleans tight ends. And first off, New Orleans played a god-awful Panthers team.
XFL team. Yep.
Yes. Foster Moreau and Juwan Johnson were both in the top 5 for tight ends on the week. And Taysom Hill was number 13.
Hey, Juwan Johnson. Juwan Johnson, though.
Yeah.
Juwan Johnson.
So 3 tight ends on one team in the top 15 is insane. It's not sustainable.
No, it's not.
They're not going to put up that many yards and that many points each game either. So
no,
you're just going to have to pick one.
If I had to pick one, I'd
roll with it that week.
They love him in the red zone. You're probably going
to. Yeah, I mean they're each going to have their games. You're just never going to know which one. It's like having a stacked wide receiver room on the Niners. That's one of the reasons why I typically stay away from teams like the Niners when I'm looking for a number 1 wide receiver. It's because there's so many options there. You've got CMC, you've got Kittle, you've got Debo, you've got Ayuk, you've got Jennings. You know, who's going to be number 1 each week?
A lot of mouths to feed, for sure.
Exactly. And then Jaden Reed is my fool's gold, and that's only because no Jordan Love means no love for Jaden Reed.
We can change this to all Packers pass catchers because Malik Willis hasn't thrown a touchdown in his career. He averages like 70 net passing yards a game after taking out sacks.
I mean, he got to throw 1 pass in that game, and it was terrible.
He didn't even get the Hail Mary off. He didn't even get he got sacked on Hail Mary. Come on, man.
That's true. He got 1 pass off and then sacked the next play.
Yes.
On a 3-man rush. All right. Don't panic. The big key to our don't panic section is going to be tight ends. And Teddy, you brought up a point off the air about tight ends in week 1 last year and this year. Very similar. A lot of names you don't recognize, and that you're pretty sure they're not going to have a career year like 8 years in. So stick with your guys like Trey McBride. The snaps and the targets were there. Be patient.
We can extend this. I know it's not on our sheet, but Dalton Kincaid. Dalton Kincaid had a good route participation.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the stills, the Cardinals were quadruple teaming him, like straight up quadruple teaming.
They were all over him.
Like that's probably not going to continue. The offensive coordinator said they need to get Dalton Kincaid more involved. I'm not terribly concerned. Obviously, I would feel better if he had 10 catches for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns in week 1. I'd feel better, but I'm not concerned yet.
All right. Brandon Ayuk. Sauce Gardner is that dude, number one. And number two, Brandon Ayuk missed all of training camp, all of preseason. They said he was going to be on a limited snap count.
Yep.
He caught 2 passes for 14 yards.
Yep, and he had a couple
Don't
more.
worry.
He actually tied for second in the NFL in end zone targets. He had 2 end zone targets. He was one of half dozen players, I think, that had 2. There was one with 3. I can't remember who it is right now, but he's going to be fine. But the Jets defense is really freaking good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Niners fan, and this game had me a little worried, but I definitely thought it was going to be a lot closer than it was.
Jordan Mason saved you. He said, "Nah, I got you."
Yeah, just don't let him talk to the media. Anyways, back to a tight end, Jake Ferguson. Obviously had that knee injury in the game. The MRI came back clean. It's an MCL sprain, and they said he's not going to miss any time. I'm guessing he'll be limited for a week or 2 and on a snap count, but his season outlook's still good. He's not going to miss. He's not going to be completely off the field.
Probably don't start him if you're talking fantasy football. You probably don't want to start him for a couple weeks to make sure he's...
If you have something to flex to, then flex to it.
If you have another tight end, go ahead and pick up that tight end. Taysom Hill's probably on the waiver. At least you might get a touchdown then.
Right. All right. Panic room.
Panic meter.
We're going to panic. Panic about the Falcons offense. Why are we panicking about the Falcons offense, Teddy?
Bull. The Falcons offense. It was another one I was really excited to see. It did not turn out so good. So, Cousins, do you want to know how many snaps that they used play action in this whole game?
Ooh. 0.
0 snaps. They used 0 snaps in play action. Like, what the hell? Cousins thrives most in play action heavy offenses. They called 0 play action snaps. They had 1 snap under center. 1. The whole game. It was 24 pistol snaps. And guess what? They ran on all but 4 of those pistol snaps. However many it was, they ran on all but 4. To the point that the Steelers, you saw their linebacker creeping down into the B gap before the snap happened because he knew it was going to be a run based on the alignment.
Yeah.
And then they lined up in shotgun, I think, I can't remember, 26, 30 times, however many it was. They passed on every single one of those. That is a team that says our quarterback cannot move. He's completely unable to move. That's bad. Now, I'm not saying he'll never...
And the worst defensive coordinator in the NFL would be able to pick up on that.
Yes.
The fact that they are...
If you watch the tape, you can actually
every single time in the pistol.
Yeah. And you can see when TJ Watt picks up on it. Defensive players, especially the freaks that we have now at defensive end, outside linebacker, edge rusher, whatever. If you can't move, they're teeing off. I mean, they know where you're going to be. And
TJ Watt's one of those guys.
Watt realizes, oh shit, this guy's a statue back there.
And
he demolishes him. And then not only that, he can't push off on his throws. There was a 3rd and 15 in the game where, he had to drive the ball downfield. And normally when a quarterback does that, he plants his cleats and throws. You know what I mean? Plants his cleats on the ground, gets his Cousins' right foot, which is the Achilles that he tore, is off the ground. It's basically drifting. He couldn't plant his feet and throw. He had a clean pocket. So this is very concerning for me for at least the next couple weeks for any Falcons pass catchers until Cousins is 100%. And if it's not, here's the scary part. We all bashed the Michael Penix Jr. pick at the time. What if they signed Cousins, had concerns about his health, and felt the need to put Penix in the top 10? That's terrifying. If you have Drake London, Kyle Pitts, that is horrifying.
Hey, I watched Penix play in preseason. He looked pretty good. So I'm not terrified.
He's still going to be a rookie if he plays with limited mobility himself. Anyways,
going to be better than Desmond Ridder, that's for sure.
Let's move on because I have a vested interest in him.
Marvin Harrison Jr., what's your level of panic here?
Low. Obviously,
Is
again,
that
it's like
after? Is that after the article or the interview with Kyler?
yes.
Okay,
Yeah, that's still after that. So, obviously, again, you'd prefer he comes out with 10 catches, 150 yards, and 2 touchdowns, like, then then it's great, but the Bills always have a very good secondary. They limit passes to the outside receivers. It's Harrison's first game. He didn't really play in the preseason. Like, there's a lot of reasons. Like Harrison had the slowest GPS tracked speed of any rookie receiver, 16 miles an hour. That's really bad. If you watch the tape,
it's faster than
he
I
he
can
had
run.
a negative ass. His ass was negative, Cody. How do
Oh,
you have an ass negative?
he's in the Quentin Johnson.
He's in the Quentin Johnston zone. But here's the difference. Marvin Harrison Jr., we saw him at Ohio State. We know he's faster than that. They have GPS at him at Ohio State much faster than that. He played like a rookie playing his first game who wasn't 100% sure what he was doing. It's going to
Yeah,
get better as it goes on. Now, if we're mid-season and he has 8 catches for 100 yards, okay, that's time to panic. But one game, I'm not terribly concerned about it yet.
yeah. I just love the interview with Kyler where he says that it's not his job to get Marvin Harrison Jr. the ball.
Kyler, I've got you
My
on like
guy,
almost
you
all my
are the
fantasy
quarterback.
teams,
It
dude.
is 1,000. It's your only job is to get the ball
Please
to your
get
wide
your
receiver.
best receiver the ball. Please.
And let me tell you, your best receiver is not the Human Torch Dorch.
Hey, put some respect on his name. He's a good receiver, but yeah, he's not better than
He's
Harrison.
Yeah, exactly. He's the
I
third
can't.
best receiver on that team.
Hey, Trey McBride's awesome, dude.
All right. Well, I was going with Michael Wilson too. So, but that's just
Yeah.
I like Michael Wilson. Panthers panic level is extremely high.
The 10 out of 10, baby. It's a
10
10
out
out
of
of
10.
10.
Burn it all down. Start over. Relocate the franchise. Make it be the London whatever, London Knights or something. You're
Salt
done.
the
The
earth.
Panthers are exactly. Salt the
Salt
earth.
the earth below,
Never bring
man.
it back. Panthers are
So,
cooked.
to plug a video that I watched, the QB School, which is JT O'Sullivan, former NFL backup
Yeah.
QB. Shout out JT O'Sullivan. He broke down Bryce Young's week 1. I, as one of my bold predictions, I was very high on Deontay Johnson because I thought Bryce Young would improve, a reasonable assumption, considering he was the worst quarterback possibly in NFL history last year. I thought he'd improve. He was not improved. That was one of his worst games, which is really saying something because he's had some bad games.
Hey, he
Last year's
still put up 300 yards on the Packers last year.
I know. Well, that's sorry, Ivy, but the Packers suck. But last year, to give you an idea of how bad the Panthers' offense was last year, they averaged 4.1 yards per play. If you go back for the last 4 years, the next worst offense is at 4.6. Coincidentally, it's also the Panthers. 2020, I think it was. I don't know what they did to piss off people, but
Oh,
whatever deity it is, can't see nice offense. But I am now much lower on Deontay Johnson, not because of anything Deontay Johnson is, but because when I was
he's
saying that
still a fantastic wide receiver.
exactly, he's a fantastic player, he was still open. But if Bryce Young is playing like the worst quarterback in the league, which he was playing like on Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
his ceiling is hard capped. I mean, that whole offense is broken. If you have a Panthers player, I have Jonathan Brooks in one of my leagues. I'm trying to move Jonathan Brooks, not because I think less of Jonathan Brooks. Where are his points going to come from? The team that I have him on, I want to win this year. Brooks is
Mm-hmm.
realistically going to be on a snap count until at least like week 8 or something like that. When he comes back,
Yeah.
is am I counting on Andy Dalton to save me? Because that's kind of what it feels like right now, and that's not a great feeling. So I'd rather trade him for somebody else that can put points up on the board.
If I'm in the Panthers front office, Deontay Johnson is gone by the trade deadline.
I disagree, but if I'm in the Panthers front office, boy, I'm sending scouts to Colorado and Georgia and wherever else has a decent,
Well,
half decent.
yeah. I'm just saying, like,
Boy, I'm
get rid
sorry,
of anything you can that's going to get you draft capital and
dude. I
just
wanted
start
Bryce Young
over.
to be good. He's a good person, but yeah, it's not working. It's not working. It's not working. Not at all.
No, it's not.
Moving on
We
to the next
talked
one.
about Terry McLaurin. Our panic level is still low. Rookie quarterback doing exactly what I said he'd do, which is run the ball and find his veteran running back and tight end in Zach Ertz and
Can I upgrade it? Can I upgrade it?
go ahead. I just dropped my pen.
I
Go
saw
ahead.
that. So out of a level of 10, I'm now to 4 on McLaurin because the more I think about it, the more I just cannot escape the fact that Washington's offensive line is garbage. Jaden Daniels did not look good throwing the ball, and that they have Cliff Kingsbury. I was hoping that Cliff Kingsbury, just like we mentioned before, would evolve a little bit. He didn't. He's still the same guy. Terry McLaurin's still lining up on the left side every freaking snap. He's not using motion. He's not using play action. He's not doing anything to make his guys' lives easier. It's
Right.
just it's bad. So Terry McLaurin again. The only reason that it's not higher is
So
because Terry
you've
McLaurin's
moved to medium level panic.
I've moved. I've made low, medium, low,
Low
medium,
medium? Okay.
low, medium,
All right.
medium, if you will.
Listen, the confidence should improve there. If Cliff Kingsbury is smart, and I know he's run decent offenses before,
He ain't
he
smart
will
though.
adjust.
He ain't
I'm hoping.
adjusted. He has never adjusted once in his life. All right.
Look, man,
Anyways,
I
let's
got
keep going.
hope. Don't crush it. All right, Rashad
Let's keep
White.
going.
Talk to me about Rashad White and your love for Bucky Irving.
All right. So my concern level for Rashad White is medium high. I don't want to go all the way high because Rashad White is a great pass catcher, as evidenced by his 75 yards on 6 catches in this last game, 6 targets. That was great.
Mm-hmm.
Rashad White, though, is one of the least efficient runners in the NFL. His rushing yards over expected last year was like second to last behind Alvin Kamara, I think. This year, through, again, 1 week, it's a small sample, but when it backs up what you saw last year over a full season, it's time to take note. His rushing yards over expected, again, bottom 5 in the league in week 1. Bucky Irving, the coaches have talked him up. I mentioned him in the last episode. Was somebody I really liked. Coaches have talked him up. He's a very decisive runner, one cut and go. He had, what was it, 9 carries for 62 yards. He has explosive run rate, again, admittedly on a small sample size, 22%. He had a lower negative run rate than Rashad White. Rashad White's explosive run rate was like 6% on, again, a higher sample. But I'm concerned if you drafted Rashad White, you'd probably drafted him at the end of somewhere in round 2. You probably drafted him. If Bucky Irving is starting to take carries, which again, he looked like the better runner.
He's going to.
Yeah, exactly. If he keeps playing like that, he's going to take a lot more than some of those carries.
Yeah,
That's
he only
concerning.
had 3 less carries.
Yes, that's very concerning if you drafted Rashad White in
Yes,
fantasy
which
football.
I did. Of course I did, because I'm a moron. Let's go into some waiver wire targets. By the time you listen to this episode, the waiver deadline will have passed.
Yep.
So we'll just do this quickly. That way we can toot our own horn later.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you take the first one?
A.D. Mitchell, as I said before, he's a very good vertical X receiver in Texas. When he got to the Colts building, well, they really liked what they saw. They really loved that they drafted him. I mean, you saw GM's reaction to him falling to them on draft night in round 2. Well, one of the marks that a team knows that their receiver is really good is the fact that they give him more responsibility. When Josh Downs went out, who did they move into the slot? They moved A.D. Mitchell. That's an indication that the guy is picking up the playbook. He's going in the slot. That, again, is just all very good signs. The fact that he had 5 targets in the first game, in a game that they only threw, I think, 20 times or something like that, he almost had 2 touchdowns. He had 2 walk-in touchdowns that if Anthony Richardson made better passes, he has a 70-yard touchdown and a 29-yard touchdown right there. It's one of the all-time great debuts. If you add that to his, I think, like 10 yards or whatever he had, 1 catch, that's 3 catches for 110 yards and 2 touchdowns. It's one of the all-time great debuts. Again, Josh Downs is going to come back. I'm curious to see what his role is when Downs does come back. But A.D. Mitchell has the talent, just like we said with Jameson Williams. At some point, it could upset the apple cart as far as targets, right? We know Michael Pittman's good. We know Josh Downs is good. What if A.D. Mitchell's better, right?
Right.
So that's a waiver wire pickup. I want A.D. Mitchell. I have him almost in every league I have. I want him to see. I want to be the one to hold him when we find out how good he is.
All right. Now let's move on to some Bills wide receivers. You like Khalil Shakir. I am a fan of Keon Coleman, and here's my argument. Shakir had more yards after the catch.
Yep.
He's been in that offense for a year. I get it. You're a little more comfortable with him. Coleman led the team in targets, receptions, yards, and average depth of target. Both are solid choices, I think, for waivers, but for me, I would prioritize Coleman. He's younger, he's bigger, and
so
he was the guy that in week 1.
The more I've done on it, the more I've come around on Keon Coleman, because just like the last episode, what did I say in our dynasty tips? You chase upside, right? Well, just like in redraft, at the end of your bench, you don't really want guys like DJ Chark. DJ Chark's a fine player, but realistically, what are you going to get? Maybe you get my luck into a 40-yard touchdown every once in a while. You know what he is.
Mm-hmm.
He's not winning you your league. You're not going to play him, right?
They were who we thought they were.
Exactly. Herm Edwards would be very proud of that. But a guy like Keon Coleman, his college profile wasn't great, but the Bills, they targeted him a lot. Considering that they only threw the ball 20-something times in that game, he was the first look target on more targets than anybody else on that team. I think Khalil Shakir's the better player right now, but Khalil Shakir's only playing in 11 personnel sets. Keon Coleman's playing in 2 wide receiver sets. Like, Coleman's on the field all the time. That is super valuable.
Yep. All right. Another wide receiver here, Ladd McConkey. I'm not expecting much from that wide receiver room at all, but he's the best bet there in LA for the Chargers.
Agreed. The Mad Lad is really good. The last play, the last touchdown he had was incredible. I mean, he made both starting safeties of the Raiders miss, and
that's not saying much.
But it was still special. I mean, the second safety, he was literally stopped because he just juked the first safety. He jukes him too. If he ever starts playing in 2 receiver sets, I mean,
because he was in the slot most of the time.
He was in the slot, but it's interesting because DJ Chark is on IR, so he's not playing for the next couple games. If you're the Chargers and you want to get Herbert more comfortable, Herbert obviously likes McConkey. McConkey is a dog. Like he was fighting the Raiders at the end of the game during that fight. I think that there's a real chance that McConkey ends up out on the field in 2 receiver sets, especially while Chark is gone. And just like the Jameson Williams with the Lions, you can't put that toothpaste back. Like it's out.
I mean, you think they're going to keep going with Quentin Johnson in those 12 personnel sets? No, if they're smart, they're gonna replace him with Ladd McConkey.
To be fair to the Chargers, they did use Johnston the way he should be used, which is like on crossers, drag routes, stuff like that, where he can get yards after catch. He's never been a great ball tracker deep, so them using him last year as an X receiver after Johnston or after Mike Williams went down was incredibly stupid. There was nothing in his college profile that would suggest this kid could be an X receiver at the NFL level, and sure enough, Pat Surtain fucking demolished this guy into the goddamn ground. I mean,
Pat Surtain is amazing. So
Pat Surtain is amazing, but he literally pressed him into the ground.
Yeah.
And also, really what you need to know is over the full season, out of 106 qualified receivers for average separation score, Quentin Johnson was dead ass last in ass.
I know you're proud of that one. That's the second episode in a row you've mentioned that. All right, let's talk about a running back here. We've already talked about Bucky Irving. He's definitely on our waiver wire targets.
Yep.
Let's talk about Jalen Wright. Jalen Wright is going to be the starting running back for the Dolphins on Thursday night.
Possibly.
I'm gonna put that right there. He is going to be the starting running back
Look, the
on Thursday
Dolphins.
night.
The Dolphins love Jeff Wilson, but Jalen Wright's just a more exciting player, man.
Jalen
And
Wright's
Jeff
going to get the
Wilson,
work. He may
Jalen
not
Wright
be
is
on the first back out on the field for the
yep.
first series, but he is going to get the work.
Hey, Cody, tell the people what you offered me for Jalen Wright. Tell the people.
No, I don't think I will.
Tell the people. Tell the people.
Uh, I offered Roshan Johnson for Jalen Wright in the middle of the night, like 12:30, to see if he would be, you know, sleep deprived enough to do it since he's got a baby and all.
My man said, let me see.
Hey,
No.
listen, you miss all the shots you don't take, right?
Oh,
Pretty
shoot or
sure Michael
shoot.
Scott said that.
Hey, look.
Oh, your Ducks.
Yeah. I got Johnny Johnson up there somewhere.
That's cute. All right, last waiver wire target is going to be take your pick over or between Tyler Johnson and Demarcus Robinson with Puka Nacua out.
Oh yeah, I got thoughts on this one.
Yeah, I don't.
All right,
It's a
DeMarcus
take your
Robinson.
shot. Either one, either or. I think is going to be.
DeMarcus
I think
Robinson.
Demarcus Robinson showed more over the back half of last year
Exactly.
than Tyler Johnson ever has in his career. But Tyler Johnson also outplayed him in this last game. So it's
Here's the other
pick your poison.
Here's the other thing. So the DeMarcus Robinson. Let me gather my thoughts here. All right, because again, this water is hitting me, man. This is some good water. So DeMarcus Robinson has been the X receiver for the Rams. That's what he is. Puka and Cup, they're both more inside flanker guys. They don't line up a lot on the line of scrimmage as an X receiver. That's what they used DeMarcus Robinson for. That's why he was so good last year, because he was on the field as an X receiver. Tyler Johnson is not an X receiver. He can do inside and outside stuff, right? Like he can do flanker slot stuff, but he can't do X receiver things. DeMarcus Robinson is going to be on the field for nearly every Rams snap.
Mm-hmm.
There's no one else on that roster right now that can do X receiver things. I have DeMarcus Robinson in one of our dynasty leagues. Shout out to you, boy. And I feel really good about my position there. So between the two of them, I think I want DeMarcus Robinson. And I'll tell you another reason why. Obviously, I said the X receiver thing. The inside receivers, flanker stuff, they have a shit ton of those guys. It's not just Tyler Johnson. Cooper Kupp got 21 targets. Cooper Kupp is going to dominate those targets for slot flanker types because that's what he does at this point in his career. Yeah. Not to say any less of Cooper Kupp, but again, DeMarcus Robinson is going to be an X receiver running the deeper routes. The Rams' offensive line concerns me a lot because they just put two of them on IR. They have another one on suspension. Like that offensive line. Against the Lions, Matt Stafford was playing out of his friggin' mind, but you would never, ever be able to tell that based on the box score. Because the box score, again, was... It's not great, the box score. It's like 6-something yards per attempt. But he was under pressure all game long. He was under siege. So, I don't trust any receiver that he hasn't had a chance to start with. The beat writers never mentioned Tyler Johnson. DeMarcus Robinson, again, he had that really good stretch at the end of last year. He clearly has some chemistry with Matt Stafford. Puka Nacua is going to be gone for 4+ games. It sounds like more at this point, based on the comments that Sean McVay had today. It's just there's a lot going on in that room, and we never heard anything about Tyler Johnson. And I remember Tyler Johnson playing at Minnesota, I think it was, and he was a good player, but again, it's a player in the same mold,